right, welcome back. If you're just joining us, it's Daybreak on Trust Television. And it's that segment where we bring you all the headlines from the most important papers in the country this day. And as usual, we will begin with the Daily Trust. And the Daily Trust major headline today, it's staying with activity within the economy. Doubts over Buhari's fresh $800 million loan request. Nigeria's fast exceeding borrowing limits, according to the Budget Office. This is the first time the Budget Office is openly admitting that they seem to be crossing the red tape. Total debt hit 77 trillion. New request, a parting gift, according to the CDD. No justification to incur debt for incoming government. And use savings from subsidy removals to fund palliatives. This is coming from Dr. Muda Yusuf. You want the details and more? Pick up today's copy of the Daily Trust and open to page 4. And to other stories, Tinubu left for Europe to reduce distraction. There seem to be so many interpretations about this travel. And to other stories, NBC lacked power to impose fine on broadcast stations. That's according to a court. You'll find the details of that story on page 14. And EFCC arrests Buhari's ex-power minister over 22 billion fraud. Amazing. How much we keep filtering away, even in the face of scarcity. And just quickly before we move on to other papers, 4 schoolgirls of FGC Brini Yawuri are still in captivity 695 days after, and less than 2 weeks to the end of this administration. And one student of the Bethel Baptist High School, Kujama, has also spent 671 days in captivity. I wish these are the kind of parting gift that we will get from this administration as it prepares to wind down. These are the major stories on the front page.
Well, Sunday, I wish the same as well. Moving to The Guardian, NAS leadership, more cracks as APC House divides against itself. That's the lead story on The Guardian. Catch that on page 6. Also, Tinubu's overseas trip stirs reaction. And we see Buhari seeks Senate approval to spend $800 million palliative loan. More trouble for students as JAMB biometric verification falters. And also, Dangote Elumelu hail NNPC's performance under Kyari. And that's it for the front page of The Guardian newspaper this morning. All
right, moving on quickly to The Nation newspaper. And we have as the major headline, APC pledges revisits of zoning amid lawmakers' protest. Adamu parties aggrieved. Adamu pacifies aggrieved aspirants for speaker, and more complaints trail recommendation on National Assembly leadership as Akeredolu calls for NEC intervention. And to other stories, Lagos government seals off 12 Banana Island houses. States fail to access 46 billion education funds. That's according to as UBEC deploys inaction. And Tinubu in Europe on investment drive. Dangote Lumelu rates NNPCL high in performance. Why annual budgets fail to perform? Buhari seeks Senate's nod for $800 million. Tribunal dismisses another party petition against Tinubu APC. These are the major stories on the front page of The Nation newspaper.
And on the Punch newspaper, we see they're still staying with the Senate presidency. Dissent in APC, aspirants demand fresh zoning formula. And that story is on page 2. There are a couple of riders underneath. APC zoning creating tension, cannot guarantee unity. Izunaso warns. North Central senators write APC chairman, decry zoning exclusion. Also, 4 men on trial for killing cousin. We also see Lagos arraign Eze Ndigbo for terrorism. Also, NNPCL needs huge investment to meet demand. And at the top of the Punch newspaper, subsidy, Buhari seeks approval of $800 million palliative loan. Trouble looms over rising debt, Budget Office warns. Also, ex-power minister arrested over alleged 22 billion naira fraud. That's it for the Punch newspaper.
All right, moving on to the Vanguard newspaper. 10th National Assembly leadership, senators-elect, reps-elect move for open contest. G7 aspirants who opposition members-elect. You betrayed us, aggrieved aspirants tell Adamu, National Working Committee. Give us time to address your grievances, APC tell Wase, Batara, others. An APC zoning formula unworkable reinforces injustice, Akerodolu. Urge National Working Committee to convene NEC. APC zoning templates, a Lagos affair. Aggrieve aspirants. I am reaching out to other aspirants, Abbas. Bajabia Miller meets Joint Task Force Group, APC loyalist. So much happening there from the ruling party. And moving on to other stories, presidential poll, court adjourns Obi's petition against Tinubu till May 17th. Dangote Elumelu hails an NPC performance under Kerry. BVN has no expiry date. This is coming from the Central Bank of Nigeria. And to other stories, how Batu tried to cripple Northern States' economy. How bandits, tried to cripple Northern States' economy. This is coming from Governor Nasir El-Rufai. And finally, we have the Nigerian Guild of Editors hail courts for stopping NBC from fining broadcast stations. These are some of the major stories on the front page of the Vanguard.
And on the Blueprint newspaper, 10th NAS, Wase, Betara, Jaji take protests to APC Secretariat. Insist zoning won't stand. Isunaso braces for Senate President. Will do the needful, Party Chair Adamu assures. Nigeria in trouble exceeding borrowing limits, and that's according to the Budget Office. We're pushing towards 100% in debt service ratio. Buhari seeks fresh $800 million loan for 10.2 million households at 5,000 naira each. Below the pictorial and on the belt, we see Presidential Election Petition Tribunal adjourns Obi's petition against Tinubu to May 17. And underneath that, we see court bars NBC from imposing fines on broadcast stations. Kwara, court remands medical director for raping nurse. Also, Sudan, JAMB to integrate student evacuees into Nigerian universities. And finally, on the blueprint, CBN vows to penalize shipping lines over undocumented exports.
All right, and finally, we will be reviewing the Business Day newspaper with niche interest on the happenings in the business environment. And here, the major story reads: Nigeria's Infra Corp in limbo as CBN delays seed funding. And tribunal rules on Atiku's live broadcast motion today. 19 days to swearing in. Tinubu jets out to Europe. And to other stories, Nigeria's debt burden re-echoes danger of rubber stamp lawmakers. This is from its news analysis. And finally, the Buhari Legacy series, Buhari reneges on job promises as unemployment quadruple. These are the major stories on the front page of the Business Day. And we now have joining us in the studio as usual, the editor-in-chief of Dateline newspaper, Marlon Nasrullah. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning.
Good morning. It's good to be here.
All right. Sadiq was joking that somehow the two of us escaped appearing in the same color of attires. Maybe the spirit was not at work today.
maybe not.
Maybe.
I mean, with the whole happenings, I'm seeing $800 million loans. I'm seeing us exceeding our, borrowings and the likes of that. So
Absolutely.
the spirit is more focused on Nigeria.
Absolutely. If you are a Nigerian at this point in time, the question would be, what is this penchant for wanting to borrow at all costs, even when you should be concentrating on, dusting off your shelves and putting your records straight in your final days of leaving office? Why are we hell-bent on borrowing to spend on what we describe as the poor?
Well, honestly, I don't know why the government is actually pushing forward with the loan issue, because if you see, even from the explanation from some of the ministers yesterday after the Federal Executive Council meeting, that they were elected for a 4-year term, and that is going to end on May 28. So pending, the end of their term, what they are trying to say is the fact that they still have, the right to do all the things that they believe they have the powers, under the Constitution to do. But like so many people are raising concern, even if you are to get this loan, how possible is it for you to be able to disburse this money within the remaining 18 days that you have. So honestly, rather than keep pushing for this, I expect the senators, for instance, to be able to keep it aside, so that the incoming administration will now have the opportunity to decide whether it's something that it needs to go forward with or even discard,
Absolutely.
because they are talking about subsidy. But if you look at the letter that the Senate President read yesterday, there was no mention of petroleum subsidy. And when they started talking about the issue, they said this is something that they need so that they can put some palliatives in place when the subsidy is finally removed, so that the impact, people will not get to feel the impact. So like so many people have argued, unless if the government is trying to make this a parting gift, I also believe that they should just discard the idea.
So still staying with the parting gifts now, if we look at the front page of the Daily Trust, quite a number of headlines. First of all, our total debt hits 77 trillion. And the CDD saying this is a parting gift, of course. And then if you look at the top, you see EFCC arrests Buhari's ex-power minister over 22 billion naira fraud. Today, the trial of the suspended Accountant General of the Federation, who is being docked for another, I think, over 100 billion naira, it commences, or it continues rather. So looking at all of this and bearing in focus that the government is pushing so much to collect 800 million, doesn't this scream somewhat mismanagement or misappropriation? Because I feel that a lot of Nigerians are going to not have this confidence that as much as we get these monies, it's going to be utilized, in their best interest.
Well, it does certainly, because, if the government had succeeded in fighting corruption, to a significant level. Honestly, all this talk about, seeking for loans, going cap in hand, looking for resources, maybe we wouldn't have seen it in the way we are seeing it. So maybe the EFCC, some will say this is actually belated because you are doing it in the twilight of the administration. But this is something that is good. The former minister should have his day in court and be able to explain all the issues, especially talking about the fact that it had to do with something budgeted for, the Mambila project and other things that are responsible for all the darkness we see around. And you see the minister coming from Taraba State, actually so many people said he was selected by the president because he came from Taraba State, and probably he will have seen that as a major project that he will see to its realization. But here we are. At the last time he had to be dropped from the cabinet, and now we are seeing these allegations. So like I said, the EFCC should do a thorough job, and then the former minister should also be given the opportunity to explain himself. And if he's found wanting in the end, then the law should take its
All right.
course.
Interesting developments there from the national polity. I like one of the phrases you used. I remember one of the papers, I'm not sure if it was your time, with that screaming headline, budgeting for darkness. And I think we still do.
Yeah.
The president, first of all, extended his stay abroad by 1 week. This time to see his dentist. In fact, some papers said he started with ear problem, now he's finishing with a dental problem.
Yeah.
The president-elect has also jetted up. Several sources within his close to him had given different interpretation to his leaving. Spokesperson said it's to reduce distraction. Others said it was strategic consultations and visitation. But there are palpable fears among Nigerians that we may just continue the trend of the current government in visiting foreign medical institutions for treatment, because they believe that behind the scene, this is what this is about.
Well, I think...
Is there reasons for us to be worried?
Yeah, it is. I think the media handlers of the president-elect, that's what they actually wanted to avoid. Because if you look at the statement that they issued, I think 9 paragraphs or so, they didn't mention the country that he was going to. And maybe they are trying to avoid the controversy. So many people are now saying Buhari has made London, UK, his second home. Probably they don't want a situation whereby Nigerians will now start saying the incoming president has made France or whichever country he's going to. But all the things that people are saying, whether the distraction part of it, whether the seeking for investors and what have you, they all mention them in the statement. So, people are allowed to decide on which one they think it's more important. But this going abroad, looking for foreign investors, it didn't start today. And somehow we have not seen the results. All the governors will tell you they are going to China, they are going to Singapore, so many countries to get foreign investors.
Now,
they will return.
Even what do you call them? Even emirs are now part of the. I mean, the Olu of Warri was also abroad selling the Warri whatever. And I said to myself, at this, how do we ever take time to do a SWOT analysis or cost-benefit analysis of what has come in versus how much we have even spent? Going abroad for this wise goose chase.
Honestly, that's one thing we should pay attention to, because the people from the West, if they see a favorable environment where they can invest their money, honestly, they will do that even without you going to look for them, because they are not actually doing it just to help you. They also want to make money out of it. So if you create the enabling environment, they will come. But this one that you will spend discuss resources at your disposal, and then going in chase of something that you're not even sure whether it will materialize or not. Honestly, I think we need to have a rethink. Maybe rather than being part of all these delegations, I think our traditional rulers should now have the guts, to be telling all these elected officials that rather than, engage in all these things that you are not even sure, why don't you do A, B, C, and D, which will benefit the people more? I think that's where we should be channeling our energy, rather than just being part of the delegation, so that in the end, maybe we get 1 or 2 extra code and what have you.
Okay, we see a very glaring promotional material on the front page of the Daily Trust, which brings me to the issue of, I see you're laughing already, the issue of the race for the leadership in the 10th National Assembly. So just yesterday on Daily Politics, we had a member, a new member-elect, who was talking about the creation of a new caucus in the House of Representatives called the New Vision, supposedly to encompass all new and incoming members of the party to adopt their own candidate. So it's now seeming like even the members of the APC themselves have problems with the, do I say, so-called anointed candidates put forward by the party.
Well, this is like scramble for offices. Some are not actually doing it because they want to be maybe the Senate president or the House. They are just trying to show themselves so that maybe in the end they can have one juicy committee to head or something like that. But like even the promotional material you talked about, saying that the Northwest deserves a Senate presidency. What are you trying to say? Maybe you should be, you should have that confidence to come out and say, okay, I should be given that because the Northwest already has, based on the zoning arrangement of the APC, they already have the deputy Senate president, and then they also have the speaker. The Southeast, for instance, has only the deputy speaker slot. So what do you expect them to say? And then you can also see what other senators like Senator Izinaso is also saying, that it should be zoned to the Southeast. What they are trying to tell you is, make me the Senate president or make me the speaker. They are not talking about just bringing it to my zone, because people are that selfish. If it is something that we benefit, good and fine. If it is something that others will benefit, then you also have to see how you can, get 1 or 2 things out of it. That's basically what they are trying to do. As for the party, they are claiming that they have the support of other minority parties. Some are mentioning the Labour Party and even the main opposition party. Some of them are saying that they have the support of the Wike faction. I don't know if there is any faction called the Wike faction because of probably the as it's coming out clearly to show they had some understanding with Wike maybe in the run-up to the presidential election. Maybe this is what they are also banking on ahead of the election of the leadership of the National Assembly. But the lawmakers, they should know that they have a right to decide who should lead them. You know, they don't have to wait for the party to impose, you know, candidates on them. If you think the one that the party is coming up with is something that, okay, fits the bill, fine and good. But if you think you deserve better, there are so many other candidates, you know. Unfortunately, all the candidates that are now teaming up, they're not doing it to present like unanimous or consensus candidate. They are doing it so that the thing will be left open, so that all of them will now have the opportunity. If they do that, then it will be very easy for the party to, you know, push forward its candidate and maybe even emerge victorious in the end.
All right. The Nation this morning was reporting that the UBEC chairman, I think, had mentioned somewhere yesterday that states failed to access 46 billion education fund. And we know that from the way this fund works, they have to provide a counterpart funding, and monitoring is very strict with regards to application of funds. Why is it difficult for state governors to access what appears to be a low-hanging fruit? Is it because they are not committed to improving education, or they don't see that as the opportunity, you know, to get these funds and channel them into the things that they want?
Well, you may see it as a low-hanging fruit, but certainly it's not. And you know, all our governors, they know this is not something that they have like complete control over. So this is something that you need to do your own part and then expect the federal government to also, you know, augment whatever you are spending. But in this case, you know, even if they are doing that, the first thing that will come to their mind is, okay, will I be able to get one or two things out of it, you know, something that I can use to my advantage. If they cannot do that, they will rather allow the money to go like that. Yes, because if they cannot benefit from it, honestly, it's not the people, it's not the interest of the people that is driving them. That's sad to say, but that's the reality. They are thinking of where they will put some money or little money and then be able to have, like the ecological fund, you know, so many of them can't even explain all the things that they did with them, and we are facing problems of flooding and what have you. But in this case, because they don't have like a total control, they can't decide, and they don't want to end up with maybe the EFCC at the end of their tenure, so they are allowing it to go. Whether we see it as a low-hanging fruit or not.
Don't you think this tells of the kind of leaders that we have, especially because, I mean, it doesn't cost so much to deliver the dividends of democracy to the people, right? So this is a fund that is literally just available. You just need to reach out and, you know, pick it up. So why the reluctance?
Well, you know, even our elected representatives that at the level of the states and even the federal level, you know, somehow you will go through the process of election, you know, do your campaign and then emerge victorious in the end, and then allow someone, because he is the governor or because he is the president, to be dictating to you what to do with your mandate. You know, that's the thing that I find very unfortunate. If our representatives can stand their ground, you know, do what the people expect them to do, we won't have things like this. But because they are also waiting for one favor or the other from whoever is the governor or the president, we end up with situations like this. So it's not about the interest of the people, like I said, it's about what they are able to get. And what they are able to get is what is driving them, unfortunately.
Absolutely. We will not let you go, of course, without touching one issue, which appears to be of great importance or great interest to us, because we also operate in that space. That is the issue of the courts telling the NBC that it lacks powers. to impose fines on broadcast stations. We know how they were dishing out those fines a la carte. Just recently, we were a beneficiary of that hammer.
A parting gift.
You know, and the court is now saying that power conflicts with the Constitution, especially in the area of separation of power. There cannot be a complainant in this case and at the same time an adjudicator. What do you make of the court pronouncement in this? I already know that you're a member of the guild and the guild has spoken in support of you, but I would like to hear your personal perspective.
Well, it's good that you know, the reactions, you know, from all the stakeholders. But one thing I find, you know, still something that is still worrisome as far as I'm concerned. The court did not say the NBC lacks the power to like do that. What it's saying is that it shouldn't go ahead and apply the sanction, because that's like a judicial action that is you know,
reserved for the courts.
The courts, and like you said, they are trying to become the judges in their own case, and which is against the law. So I think the court should go ahead, or even the National Assembly in this case should find a way of you know, whittling down the powers of the NBC, because as it is, you know, they can even take you out of business, and that's not the intent of the law. So in as much as, you know, those who violate the law should be punished, we should find a better way of doing that. Just applying sanction all the time should not be our first course of action.
All right. We must find a way to make sure that these institutions work for the benefit of the growth of players, especially players in the private sector. That's the way we can all grow. It's not a question of measuring the president's body language, and if you think the body language doesn't favor somebody, you decide to apply the carrot, the sticks in that direction. It will do no society any good. And that sums up all of the perspective from Alan Nasri Lawal, who has made it to the studio today to share with us his insights into some of the issues that made the front pages and the thinking of the editors, just like him, in deciding why these issues are the most important on our covers this morning. Thank you very much once again for finding time to be here.
Thank you for having me.
We hope to see you next time when we come calling.
Thank you.
All right, we would take a short breather. We'll return at the top of the hour to serve you all of the latest news. Please stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that